So the trailer for Karate Kid Legends is pretty misleading. I get why they did what they did. They needed to sell the fact that it was Sensei Han and Danny LaRusso teaming up to train another young guy in the art of karate. And so the trailer made it feel like this was just going to be a rehash Karate Kid movie because it's been a long time since we've had one on the big screen, and therefore they're trying to do a Force Awakens thing and just give people what they're familiar with in the hopes of rebooting the franchise anew. Karate Kid Legends is not that movie. It was actually quite surprising because it took things in a very different direction. A quick overview. Ben Wang plays a young kid who travels to America with his mom, Ming Na Wen, who's going to New York to be a doctor. He is already fluent in the art of Kung Fu, his teacher being Jackie Chan. But he comes to New York and it's a bit of a fish out of water story, but not quite because he's already been at an international school in Hong Kong and speaks with an American accent. So even in that situation, they've kind of subverted your expectations because it's not the same old, same old. The interesting thing about Karate Kid Legends is that it actually turns things around in that we meet Joshua Jackson's character, who is a former boxer, now pizza shop owner, who wants to get back into the ring because he owes some bad guys some money. And Ben, young Ben, becomes his teacher. So it's almost like a role reversal in that the Karate Kid of the title becomes the teacher in this one, which is already a subversion of your traditional trope. Yes, there is still a bully, there is still an evil dojo, there is still a karate competition, and the end kind of plays out in a familiar, predictable way. But I found this movie to be really wholesome and heartfelt, and I really loved it a lot more than I thought I would.
I was very surprised to see Joshua Jackson to have as big a role in the story as he does.
I thought he was just going to be a side character.
I don't know if he was in the first trailer. I remember seeing him in one of the trailers and I was like, oh, Joshua Jackson's in this? I mean, I'm always up for some Joshua Jackson, but I was not prepared at how, in the best of ways, old school this movie is. There is a real 80s tempo to the way this movie plays out. There's a bit try hard with the graphics towards the second half of this film, which I know you don't mind. I just felt it was a bit jarring and random. But overall, this really feels and reminds me of those good sort of Saturday, Sunday matinee movies that you used to watch as a kid.
It does have a very 1980s feel. Like, it's also cheesy and corny in that same way.
It never plays it for the cringe. It accepts
Yes.
that it is cheesy and corny. It is almost a little sweet in its cheesiness and its corniness, which I love. I appreciated that they towed that line very carefully.
That was the throwback, right? It completely embraced this idea of sincerity, which is something that we don't necessarily get in YA fiction these days. Because YA fiction has kind of gone down the dark, grim route as well. I don't know if the source was Hunger Games, but maybe thanks to the Hunger Games. And this kind of goes back to the John Hughes style of YA fiction, where there is a real genuine sincerity to all of these characters.
I also want to say that now that I've had a couple of days to think about it, Li Fong, our main protagonist, feels very much like the reluctant protagonist. I mean, there is a lot of reluctance in the movie with him, but it also feels like, unlike the original Karate Kids, he doesn't really want to do any of this stuff almost. It feels like he is swept up and pushed along and taken along on this ride where he then eventually has to meet expectations or be the person that he can be.
And there's a very good reason as to why that is. There's a very good narrative reason as to why that is. And we learn about that within the first few minutes of the film. His brother is gone. His brother is dead. And his brother also practiced Kung Fu and took part in competitions. We don't know how it happened or why it happened until later in the film. But his mum is incredibly reluctant to have her second son go down that path as well. In the movie, he says, I'm not fighting, I'm practicing the art. And she has this line about how if you engage in violence, violence will find you. And so he is constantly reluctant to get to do this. But you have the counter to that argument in the form of Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio.
Yeah.
And I think the both of them balance that out very well with the lessons they end up teaching him. What's cool is that you see Jackie Chan in the beginning of the film, then you don't see him again for another 40 minutes. And Ralph Macchio only shows up in the third act. And I really, really like that, because as I'm watching the film, I will admit there were moments when I looked at my watch to go, oh, it's been 20 minutes and still no Ralph Macchio. And I was wondering why that was, but they spent a lot of time making sure that you were familiar with these new characters. And these are new characters, and they want to create an emotional attachment with these characters, which is the right thing to do. It would be too cheap to bring in Danny LaRusso and Sensei Han and just leave it at that, because that's like the easy way out.
This movie treats its story with a lot of concern and respect, because this isn't a let's get the gang back together kind of movie. This is a story about Li Fong and him coming to terms with his history, him coming to terms with what happened with his brother, him coming to terms with who he can be as a person in and around Joshua Jackson, around Joshua Jackson's daughter, and how that can be his new personality in New York, right? I love that the writers didn't make this a Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio story and just so happens there's this new young kid that's there. This is the young kid story, and the other two just happen to be there.
That's what I was worried about. I was worried that this was going to be just a rehash of the first movie. And it isn't. Like, there are familiar beats, and that's my nitpick with this whole thing, right? My nitpick is that the movie is 90 minutes, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I love myself a good 90-minute movie. But there are bits that feel incredibly rushed. And while watching it, I was curious as to whether there was actually a longer movie that the studio then decided, hey, let's make it 90 minutes so we can scale it back a little, put it out on more screens and more time slots, and maybe make some money. Because everything happens a little quickly. It was pacey and it moved, and I kind of followed the story and it worked for me. But the love story happens a little quickly. Sensei Han shows up a little quickly. The whole climactic battle was very cleverly executed, but it happens a little quickly because it's supposed to be this 5 boroughs fight that take place over the 5 boroughs of New York, but they rush through the first 4 boroughs so quickly that there is very little time for a build-up of tension.
But I feel like that's what the first movie did, right? Like the first movie, once they got to the competition, they got through the early rounds in montage form.
There were a lot of montages, yes.
I accept that that was sort of the play of the game. I feel like the movie does what I wanted it to do. I was not looking forward to this, mostly because I didn't watch and don't care to watch the Cobra Kai series, so I've got no real... The Karate Kid fire hadn't been reborn in me from watching Cobra Kai. My last involvement and or taste of Karate Kid was the Jaden Smith one, which really was not good and left a bad taste in my mouth. So I can't say I was looking forward to this, but I'm glad that this thing exists because I like where they went with this. I like how they treated the characters. I like how they treated its storyline. I really like the way the movie was told, the way it was shot, the way it was written, felt very familiar and very comforting and comfortable. So overall, I really enjoyed my time out in the cinema for this one.
It's interesting you say that though, Bahir, because I think in hindsight, the Jaden Smith Karate Kid seems to be looked upon with much better eyes right now.
Really?
Than it was when it first came out. But I haven't seen it in a long time. And I too found it to be a bit of a meh movie when it first came out.
Yeah.
As for me, I think the first 2 Karate Kids are very, very good films. And the second one was a very, very clever way to do a sequel. And I would say Karate Kid Legends lands at number 3 for me. And then the rest. God knows the next Karate Kid was absolutely awful, the Hilary Swank one, which they pay no mention to. they do homage the Jaden Smith one in a sense with the jacket off, jacket on thing, because that was from that movie.
Right.
And they do homage Cobra Kai as well. But you don't have to have seen any of Cobra Kai to watch this. It is very much standalone.
Yeah.
But as far as rankings go, this one ranks pretty high up for me because it is a real throwback to the roots of what the franchise is, which is that underdog story and the guy on the outside making good. All of those beats are hit in an appropriate way. Like the bully is such an asshole, you hate him on sight. I think Aramis Knight, who we spoke to for Ms. Marvel, is the bully in this one. And literally, he doesn't have to say anything. You see his face and you are like, oh my God, I hate you on sight. And I think that is some tremendous acting because he wasn't like that in Ms. Marvel. So good job, man.
Ben Wang did very good. I thought he was very, very good. He
does carry the film really well.
Yeah.
He is yet again someone in his mid-20s playing a teenager, but it's very believable.
I like how he played the character. I like how he played the reluctance of the character. I like how Ben isn't cool, right? He's a good-looking kid, but he isn't cool. And he accepts that and he realizes that and he plays it that way. There's a lot of humility in the way he plays it. Yes, he's coming to New York. He already knows karate. He isn't cocky. He plays the guy as very, not just down to earth, but almost not wanting to be noticed. And I thought that a lot of his decisions as a character was really, really good. They were decisions that I would have wanted him to do, as opposed to seeing someone who's a bit more bombastic, a bit louder, right? I think even if my memory serves, like even in the original Karate Kid, Ralph Macchio is still a little loud. He's still the loud American kid, whereas Ben's playing of Li Fong is very much the immigrant to New York, not really wanting to draw too much attention to himself.
We really enjoyed the film, but before we wrap, I think I want to talk a little bit about the stupid commentary that's been going on around this film with regards to Ben being the first Asian American Karate Kid and why that's a big deal. I don't necessarily think that's a big deal. I think people who bring that up are completely missing the point of those original films and also just making a big deal out of nothing because it feels like the conversation you should be having. The whole idea of those original 3 Karate Kid movies was supposed to be about the merging of cultures. That's why it was Ralph Macchio, an American kid, and a Japanese sensei. It was bringing these two cultures together. It was about them becoming best friends. It was each person learning from the other one. That's why even the Jaden Smith Karate Kid knew what it was doing by taking a black kid and moving him to China. Yet again, it was about the conflict of cultures and learning the art to kind of bridge that gap or overcome that conflict. This one too is a clever reversal of that. And that's why Ben Wang is Chinese in New York and they play to that as well. It's the whole idea of the film. It's not about diversity casting for the sake of it. It is actually a part of the fucking narrative. And if you had paid attention to those first 3 movies, maybe you'd realize what it was about instead of going on press junkets and asking people, how does it feel to be the first Asian American Karate Kid? You fucking idiot journalist, right? It is the lowest hanging, stupidest ass question you can ask, right? It means you've not actually seen those other movies or understood what they were about. Rant over. Thank you very much. People are stupid.
My big shout out for the film is that this feels like a movie that you and I grew up with. Whether that can hold up to the scrutiny of a 20-year-old, of a 30-year-old, I don't know. Because a lot of what this movie does for me is that it is familiar. It is comforting. And I liked that. So I don't know if it will be the same for a lot of people. I genuinely enjoyed myself in this.
So I got some feedback from some of the young people who went to see our giveaway screening yesterday. And they're in their 20s-ish. And they seem to really enjoy it as well. The only disclaimer I will say is this. This movie is not like Cobra Kai. But then again, Cobra Kai wasn't exactly like the first 2 Karate Kid movies either. It kind of went off in its own direction and became its own thing. And so this movie is very different. So if you are expecting a continuation of Cobra Kai, then you might be disappointed. But this movie is actually more of a throwback to those first two movies. And so if that's on your mind, then I think you will have a very good time. Even with Cobra Kai, I loved Cobra Kai. I thought it was a very good series, but even Cobra Kai went on for too long. It was Netflix milking it, and it was wrapped up in a very good way. But the journey there got a little tedious because I felt it was getting very repetitive and soapy for the sake of it. And so I think Karate Kid Legends is this really nice, beautiful, concise presentation of the mythology of the franchise. And I, for one, would like to see it move forward. I don't know how they're going to do it, but hopefully if it does well enough at the box office, it might. I don't think this movie is particularly expensive, so it might. But these are characters that I would like to see again on screen. I really liked all of these characters. And so we think you should go watch it too. Go check out Karate Kid Legends. It's now showing in Malaysian cinemas. It is well worth your time. Let us know what you think once you've seen it. We're on Instagram on Goggler MY. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.